I'd like to introduce Kate Weber. Now, I met Kate Weber last year in San Francisco at the first San Francisco Veterans Film Festival. Mm-hmm. And she came over, introduced herself to me, and said, let's talk. And why I asked her to be a guest on the show is partly because I want you to explain what happened to you in the military, and also because you were such a wonderful advocate for the MST community. You really do awesome work. You were featured in this film, this documentary that was actually nominated for an Oscar for Best Documentary, called The Invisible War. Mm-hmm. What is The Invisible War?
Well, I think I didn't know what The Invisible War was until the film came out, and then I realized that I've been a disabled veteran for, 18 years, and I had no way to explain to my friends or my family that I'm not the only one. And when the film came out, I felt not only was I not invisible, because my family could now see in this movie that other people struggle with the same kind of depression issues as I do, but that none of us are invisible once we pull together, and that's kind of where we came up with, after the film came out, we started a Twitter campaign, Not Invisible, and we posted that everywhere and let people know we don't feel invisible anymore,
So let's talk about what happened to you in the service. Which branch did you serve in?
I joined the Army. In 1993. I was 17. My parents signed for me. I wanted to go to college, and I was in a town that had what I thought to be kind of a drug problem, and I didn't want to be part of that. I wanted to be removed from there as soon as possible, and that was the best way I saw after I examined all the branches of the military. My grandfather was in World War II. He was in Anzio, Italy. He joined the Army when he was 16. So he was a PTSD guy his whole life, and it was, nobody understood. Being a woman veteran, we pretty much don't have a choice whether we're immersed with men or not in the medical and mental health clinics.
Right.
And in my VA clinic, I started attending a group with people who also had substance abuse issues related to their pharmaceutical medications, and I'm the only girl in that group, and I've got like 15 big brothers now, and several of them are older Vietnam era veterans who have now come to terms with the availability of some help and relief. And that's been something really awesome to be a part of and to watch these guys grow. Because I walked in there just like they did, man, head down, tail between the legs, broken. And now we kind of account for each other. We're there every Wednesday and Friday. If someone doesn't show up, it's like, oh, where's Bob? And we really look out for each other. And that's really cool to be accounted for when you're a disabled vet who's been alone for a long time and isolating.
See, this is the whole purpose of the conference. We're at a Women Veterans Leadership, really, empowerment conference here in San Diego. So it's like, how do you reach out to women, to all veterans, but we're women veterans here. So how do you reach out to women veterans to, as soon as they get out of the service, and say, don't do it the way I did it. Don't wait 5 years to get help, or don't wait 10. See, that's the tragedy, is when they could get the help immediately and they wait and wait and wait.
It's fear. It's walking in feeling like it's still a military environment. There's some reprogramming that needs to go on. You are now entitled to a federal law enforcement officer when you're on the VA campus. That means that you are safe. That means that you can ask for help. Not that everything that goes down in the VA is something to be bragged about, but I can tell you they're trying and that they're really caring. As well as I do, that people have tried different things like the VHVtv group, or just trying to pull veterans together to help one another. And I really have a vision of pulling my MST brothers and sisters out of a foxhole where they're in there and they're just shut down.
Because they think they're the only ones. It only happened to me, and the reality is, unfortunately, is happening
our stories
to way too many people.
Our stories go, it's like, wow, we have the chain of command betrayal in common. Almost every story. I've never heard of a successful prosecution until Lackland, when the most recent, most violent rapist got 20 years. You know, how many people really were bystanders to that and didn't say anything because they were afraid, because they had nowhere to go to report something like that?
And that's the key. Too many people don't want to report it because it's humiliating.
Well, why the military is even giving us a restricted or unrestricted report, let's look at that for a second. What is that? Okay, what that does is it says to the victim, you can either come to us, tell us who raped you, what they did to you, and they won't be charged and your name won't be brought up in public. Well, then what did I tell you for again? That's kind of my vision, is that someday this will be recognized as, now right now it's a huge problem.
Yes.
Let's get it down to where it's not a huge problem, because it's still going to happen. It's still going to happen. We're always going to need a safe house on every base. We're always going to need a place for wives or husbands who are being abused to go, children as well, and we're always going to need sane nurses, forensic nurses that are professionals, know how to deal with a victim, because that's re-traumatizing again, you know? So there's a whole method to this, and we do not need to reinvent any wheel here, because
it has to change.
It has to change.
Otherwise, it's going to ruin the military.
Well, I'm also a volunteer for Military Rape Crisis Center. I'm dealing with some active duty MST cases right now. And so the scenario kind of goes like this. Someone says they have MST, they're traumatized, they want out of the unit, okay? They get stuck in the unit. They've made a contractual obligation, they've signed a contract, and they're not exempt. The only option they have is the expedited transfer, which does apply to the victim, not to the accused, which means the woman or man who has been raped, who is surrounded by friends and supporters, has just been raped, and now in order for them to get away from the rapist, they've been given the option to be expedited and transferred to another base where there's no support in place. The prosecution recourse will be totally different because they won't be located on the same base where they'd be charging the person. And the chain of command's still in charge of whether or not this gets to go to prosecution. Jackie Spear has the STOP Act.
Let's talk about the STOP Act. Let's explain what that means.
Congresswoman Spear has had the best idea, which then, you know, other legislation that's been written now in Congress has been, in Senate has been similar, in that they're saying, wow, maybe we should take this out of the chain of command. Congresswoman Spear and Service Women's Action Network and several other really just knowledgeable folks about what's going on here wrote the STOP Act. Generally what it does is it creates a special victims unit, and within that branch of the military. So it would be like the Army Special Victims Unit. Mm-hmm. And they would take over the investigation. They would take over the handling of the rape kit, which sometimes gets lost or not ever even tested. And all of the depositions and things like that would be collectively gathered in this Special Victims Unit that would protect the interests of the victim, and at the same time have to legally prove that this person did what he or she is being accused of. That's the way it should go. That's not the way it's been going.
Well, what has changed?
What I learned is that, so we do have in every branch of the military a department that handles sexual harassment, assault, reporting, and prevention. The Army calls it SHARP. And then they have the Sexual Assault Response Coordinator. And that's usually a civilian who counsels you and helps you through, but they really just don't have any power. And this is what I'm finding out. These SARCs and SHARPs are not given enough control to be able to protect the victim, to help us abide by HIPAA law and make it safe for us to report and keep private who we are. As a matter of fact, it usually becomes fodder for gossip or rumor because someone knows the rapist or the victim or both. And somebody knows that, you know, this always comes up. Well, the victim, she dated like 5 guys in the last year in our unit, you know, and then they bring that up, and then it becomes discussion, and reputation gets pulled in. from your past. And in my experience, I didn't have that because I hadn't been wild or anything prior. But if I had, it would have not changed that someone that outranked me said, hey, Private, come here. I need to talk to you about your paycheck. And I went with him, and then he assaulted me. And that's what happened. And he violently assaulted me and then left me there. And I will say, this is a very vulnerable and unhealthy community at this time. We have a lot of people who have never acknowledged that they've had sexual trauma, and they're now realizing we're coming forward, and they're feeling courageous enough to step forward and say to their husbands or their families, and they're not prepared. They don't have the resources in place yet. And when they get rejected by people who don't believe what they're saying, it's going to become difficult. And that's why it's important for us to reach out to our vet centers and our VAs and talk to the MST coordinators and give them another chance, because they really are hiring some wonderful people.
Just get involved in a veteran service organization, because that not only helps the veteran service organization, it helps you as a veteran to heal.
Yeah, I mean, the world is so much bigger than just us, you know, and that takes you out of that isolation, and you're a part of something, and that's really important for us. You know, once you lose your rank and your uniform, you've kind of lost an identity, and it doesn't have to take 18 years to get it back if you've got a coach, you know. And so I'm grateful. I'm surrounded by these just amazing women, and I want to share them with others. So if you know any women veterans or males with MST who need support, and they live in California, San Francisco Bay Area, or they just want to come on Facebook and be a part of our MST Recovery Network, or they can friend me on Facebook, Kate Weber. I'm the only Kate Weber with red hair. That's the only way I can explain who I am on there, because, but I have my Katie Weber page, and I just want to help people. I want to show them that, you know, I was in the worst way.
You survived it, and actually you're healing yourself through your outreach to others.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Kate,
Thank
for
you,
everything
Cheryl.
you're doing.
Thank you.